Hey guys, I just wanted to make a quick video about my thoughts on basically summoning for Xiao right now or trying to wait it out for Hu Tao. There's just a few key points I'd like to make, and basically the most important one, I think, honestly in my opinion, whichever character you like more, you should just go with that one. If you're into Hu Tao and you're excited for her and you like her more than Xiao, and even if she gives bad numbers and she can't one-shot stuff, you should still go for her. But if again, on the other hand, if you do like Xiao, I think he is the character for you. So differences between the two, I think the main difference we can see is that Xiao is very dependent on his team and resources. So he has two main drawbacks and potentially a third, but basically a C0 Xiao is always losing health when he's in his Q, which is his best form. So sometimes when you're in the air, you get hit by rockets or any ranged shots like bows. It's really annoying because you can get knocked out and it's harder to dodge sometimes. If you're outputting enough damage and everything dies, it's not really an issue. The second thing is, Xiao's second main problem that we all know about is his energy recharge. So this is semi-solvable with either running a battery, an Animo battery like Sucrose or Venti or somebody like that, or just running an energy recharge spear. So we've seen that the Favonius and probably Prototype Star Glitter have been a lot more viable than we thought. I think Skyward Spine is still an awesome option for him. But otherwise, the more DPS spears like Blackcliff and Deathmatch are going to put him in a position where he's very energy hungry. And so you either really need to be wiping out mobs with him, or you just need to be feeding him with somebody else's energy particles. Now, Xiao shines, I think, against any mobs, and especially if you give him something like the Blackcliff. He will pump out AoE damage like crazy, and then he'll basically clear out any mobs, he'll get his energy recharge, and you're basically chilling with him. But I find he's not that good for bosses. He takes a few more hits, and someone like Ganyu before him is definitely able to focus her damage more. I think, honestly, even my two main DPSs are Klee and Ningguang, and I really like both of them because they're able to basically cycle between, not really cycle, but utilize both AoE damage or hit multiple enemies at the same time, and they're able to focus all of their basically output into one enemy. So Ningguang's burst, every one of her basically missiles or rocks hones into a boss or an enemy, as long as you're not at a very weird angle. And same with Klee's ultimate. She'll just kind of lock on and all of her lasers will hit them. So Xiao will only get one shot off, and so his potential damage, because that could be increased by about his plunge ultimate damage could be increased by the number of enemies around you. So if you're doing 20,000 and there's 10 people in the kind of around you, then you'll be doing 10 times 20,000, so 200,000. But if there's only one boss, then you're only doing 20,000 to him. So your DPS is very dependent on the number of enemies, effectively. And so that's the one thing that I find I don't love as much about his ult, if that makes sense. Ganyu just puts out enough damage in one spot that it's basically okay. And again, people like Klee and Ningguang will actually put every shot onto a single boss, so they're still very viable in a single target situation, although their damage is probably a lot less than Xiao. Now, does that mean Xiao's bad? No, Xiao is, a 5-star DPS unit, so he's completely amazing. With Xiao, there's honestly, basically, I would say it's like this. If you need a DPS unit who's going to be your main DPS and you're willing to build your whole team around him, then I think Xiao's definitely worth it. If you want someone to support an existing team that you have, then I don't think Xiao is the right person for that. I think Hu Tao is going to be a bit better for that because she seems like she's a lot more independent and she doesn't actually rely on so many other people as much. And so for my account, now that I'm looking at it, basically, although Xiao is really cool and I like him, and then also the fact that I probably can't even summon him, I'm in a situation where Hu Tao would probably benefit my team composition a lot more. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit. So basically, I'm just still trying to clear out Spiral. Now, please don't laugh at me because I'm at AR 52 and I still haven't cleared out Spiral 12. But I would say I haven't been too focused on team compositions. I was building people more like, oh, this is a good healer, very like individually. And so I have like two kind of main parties. These are my teams. These are my 8 most invested solid-ish units, right? And Xiangling's quite a big potato, honestly, for me. And my Bennett's like basically perfect for a Bennett. I have him like not very invested in, but he's perfect because he's Bennett. Y'all know that. He does his job like extremely well. Now, the question is, if we look at this team, this is nice. But the Xiangling is a little bit of a potato. She's kind of weak. And do I really want to invest into all of her artifacts and take her up to level 70 or 80? And I don't really have a perfect spear on her because Crescent Pike, we're not using her as main damage dealer. We're using Ningguang as a main damage dealer. And Ningguang will always hit harder than her. So there's not really a point in having a Crescent Pike if Xiangling's not going to be carrying your team. Otherwise, I have this Blackcliff. Maybe we can see it here. I've got this Blackcliff that's at 82 because I was basically a fool and I thought I could summon for Xiao when I didn't have him guaranteed. So this was a learning lesson. Don't assume you're going to get someone. But here this weapon is basically giving 50% crit damage and then it's for someone who's a DPS unit. So that doesn't really fit Xiangling. I don't think it's the best for someone like Zhongli. It's okay, I guess, if you really build him like DPS, but if you're trying to use it support Zhongli, then this is not the best for him either. So we've got this Xiangling and this pretty good spear. Now, say theoretically I could get a Xiao. Xiao on this team would be okay. Again, his Animo infusion, you are not using Viridescent Vener. He would just provide a lot of DP, what would it be? A lot of AoE damage. And basically he'd have to stand on a Bennett ult, and sometimes it's actually hard to get the Bennett ult up, because for example in floor 11 of Spiral Abyss, you're always losing your energy recharge. So you're not actually able to rely on people's ults. So Xiao's probably going to struggle there. Ningguang is usually okay because her ult requires so little. You can actually, with a few E's and kind of kills, you can get it up pretty fast. But the Xiao is going to be very, very hard to use. So even if we were able to get a Xiao, then he's not really supporting Ningguang. He's going to, I'd say, he's going to kind of clash with her because they both want time on the field. And Bennett is not even like going to be able to heal him the best. It'll be like good, it'll be okay. But he won't even be able to heal him because sometimes he gets stuck at 70%. You know, if you're at 60 and then you get a heal, you can get over that 70%. But you're usually going to top out around there. And so it's going to put Xiao in this kind of very bad position. And basically the rest of this team won't support Xiao. And as we talked about, Xiao is someone who really wants a lot of support. So, for me, Xiao, this team is basically fine. And I'm not going to replace Klee with Xiao. And there's not really a point. Like, you could replace Fischl with Xiao. But then again, like, I have Klee as a main DPS. So I don't really need the Xiao. The point here is that the question for me between Xiao or Hu Tao, it's basically a very clear Hu Tao. Because for this team, we can just ask, do I want a Xiangling or do I want a Hu Tao? And I think a Hu Tao is obviously going to do a lot better. I can switch out with Ningguang if she gets low, then I can switch out to Hu Tao, and I can let Hu Tao kind of do some DPS. We're going to have shields, we're going to have pyro resonance, we're going to have geo resonance. And it's just going to be like, I think basically Hu Tao just fits my team much, much better than Xiao does. Before I didn't have Ningguang, and so this wasn't really a question. So basically the Xiao was a lot more viable, and I could shuffle around people to try to support Xiao. I would need to give him Venti. I would need to honestly maybe run him with Chi-Chi. So basically like half of this team would be Xiao, and then I'd need to have Klee on this team. But basically, for the situation I'm in right now, I'm thinking basically Hu Tao would do a much better job than Xiangling on my team. So, the moral of the story is that I'd like to get to is that it really depends on you. It depends on your team. It depends on who you want, who you like. If you like Xiao more, and even though Hu Tao is going to fit your team way better, and you can get him, then I just say get him. Whoever is going to make you the most happy, that's who you want to have the most. But if you actually want to kind of think about this, or like if you want to pick whoever's going to benefit you more, then you need to try and think about how they're going to fit into your teams. Xiao is someone who I would pull if I don't have another main DPS. So for example, on my secondary account, where I'm going to be running Diluc and Xiao as two main DPS units, the Xiao is perfect because I still haven't invested into anyone, and I can build a whole team around the Xiao, which is what I'm doing. And then that team is going to be able to take care of almost every situation and just support Xiao through almost everything.
Alright, so in this section I just wanted to look at a few more numbers with Hu Tao with my calculator. So basically we're looking at a Hu Tao at level 90 with a level 90 Blackcliff. And this is basically a crit rate, elemental bonus, and attack percent build. So you can see the number down there. It was like 12,000 something. You can pause and check. But basically, we're going to find out that it's going to be a little bit lower than an HP build instead of the attack percent artifact. So what do I mean by this? I mean, we're using basically the E skill, and then we're using a charged attack. So that's what the multiplier is based on. And then there you could see we added the HP percent artifact and took away the attack percent artifact. Then what we're going to look at, we're going to fiddle around with the bounds a little bit. So don't worry that it says low bound and high bound, and the low bound is higher than the high bound, but I'm just using it as kind of numbers. So right now we're considering any and all rolls basically, and so we see that it's 13,000. So definitely the HP artifact, when the E skill is active, is going to give you more damage than the attack percent artifact, at least in this case with the Blackcliff polearm. Now if we switch some of the high bound or some of the low bounds to the high bounds, which just means we're maxing them out at 2, so we're restricting these, what we're going to see is that instead of the crit rate and crit damage distribution of stats that the optimizer gives, we get maxed out at 2 for the crit damage, and then all the rest goes into crit rate. So you can see there's 18 going into crit rate, and we're at 12,900, which is about, might be 900 something else. So it looks like it's pretty close. It's not a big deal, but it isn't at that perfect ratio. You can see you're almost at 100% crit rate and 156% crit damage. So I didn't want to talk about Hu Tao too much because, as I said before in the video, I think it's really early for us to try to see how good she is. We can't really tell that much. It looks like her charged attack is going to be pretty good, but it looks like she'll be very heavily HP dependent. And then if you'd want to balance that between when she's out of her E skill, then an attack percent artifact would actually probably be the way to go. Otherwise, if you only want to use her in her E skill, then it's looking, at least from this math we just did now, that the HP percent artifact is going to be better than an attack percent artifact. But it's too early, and we're going to keep looking at some numbers and try to make some predictions for the Hu Tao. Otherwise, if you liked the video, please like and subscribe. And in the next one, we're going to look at Keqing.